Heard it, or is it?
Yeah, it's recording right now. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Zach Cowie, season 1 of Master of None was really well received by critics and audiences. I think it surprised a lot of people. Going into season 2, what were your guys' expectations like?
Well, you're right. It did. It surprised us and a lot of people. Season 1 was such a different feeling because we had no idea if anyone would like it, and once it did get all this response, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to top it in season 2, and to for all of us to kind of push our individual roles and take it to a new place, which brings its own new set of fears, because you just kind of hope people go with you on that trip. But the big, goal with everybody was to just not repeat ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And so, as the music supervisor, you are tasked with selecting the appropriate songs that are going to play in each scene. I wonder if you could just talk a bit about how you go about doing that. How do you select the perfect song for a moment?
Well, it's very case by case. Me, Alan, and Aziz work together really close, and I have a co-supervisor named Carrie Druten, who handles a lot of kind of the dirty work, a lot of the licensing, negotiations. But it's really all of us just talking just about every day for about a year. Some things start at the very beginning before a script is even written, and Alan and Aziz will let me know themes that they want to get into, and we'll just start sharing music back and forth, and they're listening as they write. And some things just kind of creep their way into the scripts, and they're baked in. But there is a lot of stuff that you can't work on until you see it. The scene really dictates what works there. So it's very case by case, and I can't stress enough how much of a collaboration it is, especially with me, Alan, and Aziz. We're all just kind of trying to top each other, to come up with the best thing. And it was really fun for me to be in a situation where we just kind of let ownership go. All we really cared about was what was best for what we were trying to do. And so much stuff is straight from Aziz, so much is straight from me, but the majority of it is us just going back and forth till we get the feeling that we're looking for.
Certainly one of the highlights of this past season was Aziz's trip to Italy.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that, and about how you used music in order to create the atmosphere of being in Italy?
Yeah, so it's, check it out. I prepared ahead of time, and I have some visual aids.
Oh, cool.
So that was one of the first things he said going into season 2, before they'd written anything. He's like, I think we're going to start in Italy. So I just started to load him down with Italian music. And this is the first thing I sent him. It was Lucio Batiste, a track called Amarsi un po'. And this connected in a big way for him. The title of the song translates to love a bit, which kind of ended up being the perfect way to describe the Dev and Francesca arc. And he liked the song enough that he titles the 9th episode after the song. And we closed with that song as well. And that one was really, really difficult to license. A lot of the Italian stuff is tricky. And that's why, I have to thank Carrie Druten in every single interview I do, because she's the reason a lot of that made it to the screen. But there's two very distinctly different Italian tones. The first episode, the black and white one, that's almost entirely repurposed Italian film score from the 60s, a lot of which is by Ennio Morricone. And then we had the idea to switch the style up for our color episode, and almost all of that is Italo disco from the late 70s, early 80s. I pulled some of those off the shelf. With Pino D'Angio, he's in the scooter scene. We closed that episode with the song here from the Rainbow Team called Bite the Apple. But these are all big Italian club records from the, like I said, late 70s, early 80s. So, you know, there is like a love letter to Italy in this season, and it was really important to us to kind of properly represent the music from there. You know, people were people were just like, so it's going to be all opera, right? And I was like, no, there's so much music in Italy, and yeah, I'm happy about it. I get very proud when I see like people from that country being like, wow, they use this, wow, they use that. Especially Lucio Gattese, because he was one of the most famous singers in Italy, and his music has never been licensed outside of that country. So for us to use it, it's really kind of like the cherry on top of that love letter we tried to put together here.
As a fan of that era of Italian filmmaking, Fellini and Antonioni and De Sica and all that, I really appreciated the musical and visual references to those films.
I'm sure you caught our little Criterion Easter egg in the first. Next to Dev's bed is like every Italian film we directly reference.
Yeah, I own all those movies. So.
Yeah, cite your sources always.
One of the great things about this show is that you know, every episode feels like a little short film in and of itself. You know, and although there are narrative threads throughout all of it, a lot of it is just these little standalone short stories. Can you talk a bit about how that kind of frees you up to choose different kinds of music for each episode?
That was a real gift for me. Truth be told, I'm way more interested in film than TV. I don't even really watch TV. I've watched like The Wire and the shows I work on. So I think much more in a film sense. So not really having to be pressured to get too many things to carry over from one to the other was amazing, because we were able to give each little episode its distinct sound and its distinct look. And I guess the thing that ties them all together is just this kind of quality control that we put on it. Like, even though this song may be wildly different from anything else we use, there's something about us all signing off on it that gives it this cohesiveness. And that's really the way I listen to music too. You know, I don't like to think much about genre or time period. I want to know everything that's ever been good. And that collector sense I have really helps me do this show, where we don't really have a sound per se.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned movies, and you do have a background in music supervision in films like Public Enemies and Celeste and Jesse Forever. So I wonder how was it a transition, a tough transition going from films to this television show, or was it more or less the same?
Well, given the nature of this show, it was pretty easy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I had to learn. You know, I didn't even know like what some of the titles of these people that I was talking to all day meant. You know. But yeah, I mean, I'm still relatively new at all this stuff. I come from the record business, and I spent 10 years working at record labels, been DJing and collecting for like 20 years. So it's all pretty new to me. And I mean, I honestly think that a lot of the response the music gets for this show comes from me really not knowing the rules. I think Orson Welles calls it the confidence of ignorance.
Well, I mean, how did your background in the record business help prepare you? Was there anything that did help you in preparing you for this?
Really, just collecting music and traveling a lot and meeting with, you know, record collectors, very specialized collectors all around the world for, I mean, since I was like 17. I'm 36 now. Whether I was aware of it or not, I was sort of building the vocabulary to do this job. And it's something I really like to think about now is that was all just driven by my own curiosity. And it's really beautiful now to look at how I can't do this job if I didn't have that period in my life. And yeah, and then being in the record business kind of teaches you sort of the back end of it, which is the the unspoken scary part of this job, which is to actually license all this music.
Right.
So I was given a sense of awareness of all that from being on the other side of it. But it's really just, just collecting records, and I can't stress enough, like, the community that I come from as a record collector and DJ. I couldn't do this stuff without them, because, even like for season 1, when Aziz is like, we need Indian stuff, I was like, perfect. I've been record digging around India. Season 2, he's like, we need Italian stuff. Amazing. I've met with some of the best Italo DJs ever. So really, I was just building up this arsenal very unknowingly.
When you guys are working on episodes, I'm just curious about what the process is like. I mean, have they given a temp score or anything like that, or
No, we don't do a lot of original score in this show. We have great composers, but unfortunately, we don't give them a ton to do, because Aziz and Alan and myself, we're all just such music freaks that's, Aziz will be writing something and thinking of songs, and I'll be filtering songs with him the whole time. So a lot of times the first things we put to picture are these songs that we've been talking about the whole time that they've been shooting. And we've gotten really lucky, especially on season 2 with the licensing. Season 1 was a little trickier because we had to kind of pitch the show to people. But now that season did so well, we can just say it's for Master of None, and it makes the conversation a lot quicker. But we really just put our first idea up there until we get stopped, and then just start subbing in more. Yeah, and we got really lucky this time.
It certainly helps that the show has established itself as a beacon of new television. The show it really surprised a lot of people in its first season, and the anticipation for season 2 was really high. I wonder, why do you think the show had such an immediate impact on people who saw it?
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I I have a very long-winded story that I'll try and make. I'll try and streamline it, but I've always been fascinated by the U2 album Joshua Tree.
Okay.
I'm not a U2 fan at all. Like, I really don't care about them much, but I love that record, and I've always kind of wondered about it. And that album is produced by Brian Eno, and I caught an interview with Eno in a documentary I was watching, where he kind of says that in that time period in the early 80s, there was sort of a formula that you could follow and be cool. And what they wanted to do was to really kind of open up and basically make a gospel record in the height of cool plastic new wave, under this suspicion that people were starving for something that actually felt alive and human. And I think weirdly that's what happened with this show. I think it's really, there's a formula to get the job done at this point. And our kind of breaking of the formula, which gives this real awareness that there's just these people that love doing this. I think that connected to people. And I hate I think vulnerability is a little played out, that word lately, but that's what it is. Like, the hearts are on the sleeve with like every person who works on this thing. And I think that whether people knew it or not, they were sort of starving for that feeling. The show is very pro people and pro humanity. And I think a lot of film and TV now is really just kind of beating people down. So I think I don't know, it may not make any sense at all, but it clicks in my brain as the time period now being very similar to the climate in the early 80s when U2 made the Joshua Tree.
Well, I think I get what you're saying. It's comforting in a weird way.
Yeah.
But it's also very unique and new, and I think speaks to a generation.
Yes.
In a profound way.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on season 2. I look forward to season 3 and hopefully more.
Oh, Thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks.
Bye.